The Jared Dillian Show.
I'm Jared Dillian. This is the Jared Dillian Show. We're in the home stretch here. If you want to call to talk about your money, the number is 844-305-7800. That's 844-305-7800. This is the Jared Dillian Show. And I'm going to tell you a story, my personal financial problems. So we bought a house in 2015, and it's a big, expensive house. And as we've talked about a bunch of times before, your maintenance expenses are commensurate with the price of the house. So if you buy a cheap house, you have cheap maintenance expenses. If you have an expensive house, you have expensive maintenance expenses. And this year, we had to paint the house. It was time. So we called a bunch of painters, and this is really weird. Well, it's not weird. I mean, basically, I don't know if you have any experience with this, but when you call like a contractor or a painter or somebody like that, the economy is hot here in Myrtle Beach, and people are busy. They don't return your phone calls. So we must have called like 6 or 7 painters, and only 2 of them got back to us because people are just busy. They can't take the work. So we got 2 estimates from these 2 painters, and they both came out to the house and looked around and, checked it out. So the one estimate we got was $11,000 to paint the house. And the other estimate we got was $25,000 to paint the house. So now, you might think this was an easy decision, but it wasn't a totally easy decision because the guys that charged a lot had a great reputation and were known for doing a really good job. And this we knew. They had a great reputation. The guys that we were going to pay $11,000 to did not have a good reputation. They were a bunch of schmucks. So, we kind of had to decide, like, is $14,000 worth getting the expensive? I mean, so basically we came to the conclusion that it's just paint. It is just paint. We don't need to pay an extra $14,000 for paint. So we went with the cheap guys. We paid $11,000, and they sucked. They dragged it out forever. It took like 6 weeks. They never showed up on time. They never did anything they were supposed to. They ultimately, they painted the house. It's done. It looks fine. It looks good. But, they were annoying. But, is it worth $14,000 to get painters that are not annoying? Now, today, the hot water heater crapped out, and we have 2 options for hot water heaters. We have the cheap option, which is $2,200, and we have the expensive option, which is $3,800. We are going with the cheaper option. In both cases, with the painters and the hot water heater, we are going with the cheaper option. It's just paint, and it's just hot water. You don't have to build a temple to your hot water and worship it. It's just hot water. So maybe at some point I will regret these decisions. Maybe like a couple years from now, the paint will peel and chip and fall off. Maybe my new hot water heater will crap out. Maybe it was the right thing to spend more money on this stuff, but I doubt it. It's literally just paint, and it's just hot water. And I'm sure you've known some people in your life. I know a few that they have to get the best of everything. They have to, whatever it is. I'm going to get a juice. I can't get the $2 juice. I have to get the $10 juice because it's better. I have to get the best of everything. I know a couple people like that, and I just don't work like that. When I got out of college and I moved to Washington State, we by the way, the town that we lived in, we lived in a town called Port Angeles, Washington. And I apologize if you're from Port Angeles, Washington. Not because I'm offending you, but because I'm apologizing if you're from there. Like, I'm really sorry. It's not a great place. Anyway, we went there, and when we went grocery shopping, we basically got all generic stuff. We got the store, we got Safeway brand generic everything. By the way, the Safeway coffee was awesome. The Safeway salsa, I remember, was really good. We basically got generic everything. I mean, why did we need to spend an extra, $4 or $5 on coffee? I just didn't see the point. And by the way, we still, to this day, like we go grocery shopping and we get more name brand stuff than we used to, but a lot of it's still generic. We get a lot of generic stuff because, if you're buying like a bag of sugar, like what difference does it make if it's the name brand? It's just sugar. It's a commodity. Bleach. Actually, this is the one I was looking at. I was in the store about a month ago and Clorox versus the store brand bleach, there was like a $4 difference. It is literally the exact same chemical. It is the same. There's nothing different. It's a chemical compound, and it's the same thing. What do you think? Like Clorox is better? It's the exact same thing. So, to this day, I still get generic stuff. The reality is that you can cheap out on a lot of things in life, and it really makes no difference. Like paint, like bleach. The one area where I don't cheap out is clothes. And, everybody who knows me knows this. I don't cheap out on clothes for a couple reasons. One, I think personal appearance is important. How you present yourself is important. I didn't used to care about that. One of the things I used to, I think back to 10 years ago, and I first started getting into electronic music, and I used to go to clubs in New York. And there was this club called Pacha, which isn't there anymore. But Pacha was like, it was an amazing club. I mean, it was a shady club. It was super shady, but it was amazing sound system. I saw some amazing music there. I used to go wearing a fleece. I used to go to clubs wearing a fleece. And I think about that today. And I don't cheap out on clothes anymore. I care about my appearance. And the other thing is that expensive clothes generally last longer. They do. I actually have I have a conundrum because I have a lot of dress shirts, and the dress shirts that I buy are an expensive brand, and they're so well made, they never wear out. They literally never wear out. I will have them forever, and it's a problem because, like with clothes, you kind of expect there to be obsolescence, right? Like they'll fray and rip and tear, and you'll have to like get rid of them and get new ones. With these shirts that I buy, and by the way, like if I don't know, I'll tell you the secret on shirts some other time. But like these shirts that I buy, they're indestructible. They don't wear out. Now they cost about 4 times as much as a normal shirt, but honestly, like I probably saved that money in the long run anyway. So clothes I don't cheap out on. I cheap out on cars. That's a great way to. Cars are literally the best way to waste money in the entire world. Just set it on fire. Absolutely set it on fire. Buy a BMW SUV for $60,000. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth like $52,000. You get a 6-year loan, you're going to pay like $15,000 to $20,000 in interest over time. I mean, you're literally just setting money on fire. As I said, I cheap out on food. The one thing I indulge in is that I like steak. And once every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, I go to Whole Foods and I get like prime ribeye. Like I'll get like a $20 steak. So that's like my splurge. Super expensive restaurants. Honestly, maybe once every 6 months as a treat. When I travel, I fly coach. I can fly first class, but I fly coach. Hotels, I don't stay in the Super 8, but I don't stay in the 5-star places either unless it's like a really special occasion. Eating out for dinner, there's some people, I know people who eat out every meal of the day. Bad, really bad. Just learn how to cook, even basic stuff. Make spaghetti. Like literally just go buy spaghetti, boil the spaghetti, get a jar of ragu. That's your dinner. Because you're going to spend hundreds of dollars a week eating out all the time. I do spend a little bit of money on coffee. I get special coffee. Phones I'm actually torn on the phones. By the way, $1,000 iPhone, $1,000. I think for $1,000, it should have 10 U2 albums on it. The phone, like, look, I mean, I suppose you can cheap out on phones. You can get a flip phone or whatever. I think if you work in sort of the knowledge industry, you need to be plugged in, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you have a hobby, go ahead and spend a lot on the hobby. One last thing before we go. The two things you can spend money on in the world, spend as much money as you want. A mattress and air conditioning. Mattress and air conditioning. You can splurge on that. I'm Jared Dillian. This is the Jared Dillian Show.
The Jared Dillian Show.